So last session of the day, I see a lot of jet-lagged people. I'm jet-lagged too. I mean, this time last week, I was in Australia and I was sleeping. So my body is reminding me that I should be sleeping. Thank you for bearing with us. And so, as my colleague Asuda said, women have been critical to this process, and so this session is to talk about, I don't know, we call it the shadow. I don't know how 50% of the population can be in the shadow, but I guess that's where we are. And this session is all about centering the debate on gender-sensitive policymaking. We have three wonderful speakers. I'll start with Gül Günaydın, got it somewhere there, from Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University, and she will be speaking about considering children, how can experts and activists without access to power influence policymaking. Then we have Elsa Rodrigues from ISTI, Benguela, talking about the socioeconomic impact of lockdowns on Angolan women and in rural areas. Last but not least, we have Riva Yunus from York, talking about the gendered impacts of lockdowns, some insights from India. So without further ado, I will introduce Gül, and Gül will join us. Gül has a degree in medicine and specialist training in emergency medicine. She's an assistant professor at Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University, Faculty of Medicine, Department of Emergency Medicine, and she's also a consultant of emergency medicine at Ankara Bilkent City Hospital. She's a member of Emergency Medicine Association of Turkey and is also on the editorial board of the Anatolian Journal of Emergency Medicine. She's a member of the Turkish Medical Association School Health Working Group. Welcome. Good.
In this 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about what we did from where Tomlis left. First of all, I would like to start with thanking everybody who invited us here and giving us the opportunity to present. It's been wonderful so far. And we have done a few things that Tomlis and Isuda has started talking, and I'm going to tell you about the rest. So how to impact policy making? If you ask this question to ChatGPT-4, it gives you the list of things that you can do, but I am going to tell you about the genuine things that we did practically last year and the year before. So that's the COVID picture in Turkey. The one in the middle is the Ministry of Health, and he formed a scientific advisory board in January 2020. Which was kind of hopeful for all of us because we thought then the decisions would be more scientific based, and most of them were, in my opinion, except the schools. So, I would just like to quote Yankı Yazgan. He's a child psychiatrist from our working group also. He just said in one of his presentations that he has never thought that one day it will be necessary to tell people why school is essential for children's well-being. Because you know, child psychiatrists are always like, school are trimming children and it's not good for imagination, it's all same for all the children and it's not inclusive and diverse enough. But during COVID, we really understood that schools are very necessary in children's life, especially in cities. And school closures were done in the very beginning of the pandemic, even before the lockdowns. So after the very first case, the schools were closed and they were kept closed for a year and a half. And that included grade 1 through university. The only grades that were spared were the kindergarten and the daycare because I think they served the working moms. They were kept open so that the moms could go to work. And everyone thought it would be temporary, also I did too, but after weeks, there was the summer break, and then we realized after the summer break there will be no school. Then I panicked because, you know, I have to go to work and I'm reading all those articles and they say it's not really dangerous for children. And I'm talking to Tomris and she goes, everything is back to normal in Holland. And I'm like, how is this going to work in Turkey? And we decided we needed to do something. So don't think I wasn't afraid. Don't think I wasn't in the middle of the pandemic. As an emergency physician, I was working in my department. This is me. And after work, I was coming home, or on the days that I weren't on duty, I was doing homeschooling with my daughter. She's on the left side, and this is Atatürk. We were celebrating a national holiday. You know, we have been doing ceremonies at home in front of the computer with all the kids at their own homes. Yes, this is funny now, but it wasn't funny back then. So in July, we decided something needed to be done, and we thought who was going to do it and how was it going to be done. We thought experts of medical society, we are a member, and teachers unions and parents, but parents were afraid. Teachers unions were not there because they thought school closures weren't that bad because teachers were home and they thought distance learning wasn't that bad. And we then realized it was going to be us. We will do it. We had our slogan ready. It's let's open schools, but wait, we have the expertise, but we have no money and no power. So we had to invent ways to get to people, and especially the people in power. Now what do we do? They already introduced us, so I'm going to skip this. And between August 2020 and December 2020, we had meetings and interviews with over 150 people. We started with the ones that are most influential, on social media, and they were already on TV. You know, in all countries, experts started to go on national television to give information about COVID, and that was the case also in Turkey. So we started with reaching them. We thought if we could persuade them, they could go on national television and say, let's open schools, but nobody wanted to take the risk. And some of them really didn't believe that schools should be open. So we went to Scientific Advisory Board of the Ministry of Health because I have known many people. Actually, I am working in the same department with some of them. And we have gone to teachers' unions and parents, educators, and NGOs, and journalists. And of course, as a regular doctor, I didn't know any journalists, but I used every means to reach them, and we managed to reach some, and then at the end of the campaign, you'll see what happened. And support mostly came from women, because, you know, women suffered most, because they had to go to work, because they had to come back, and as you mentioned, there was no help from their mothers or house workers, and also there was no school, so it was really harder for women during the pandemic in Turkey. So our main goal was change the discussion from should we open schools at all during the pandemic towards we really have to open the schools. And should we open the schools at all? They said nothing will happen if children do not go to school for a year because, you know, school wasn't that valuable. And what happens if you learn the math next year rather than this year? And distance learning is as good as in person. They can catch up with this later. And school is not essential during the pandemic. This was one of the ideas that we needed to fight against. And then what is needed to open schools? A long list of things, like air conditioning, HEPA filters, that are not required in hotels, in sports venues, in any other place but schools. So we had to fight with all these ideas. And we started by saying school is really essential for children's well-being, because especially in the cities, it's not just math and science, it is the habitat for children, and it's very important for social and emotional development of children. And we really told people that there are milestones in child development, and we had to make examples, like why do we have hearing tests at the very beginning of life when there are newborns? Because any parent would realize that their children is not hearing, you know, at a certain point, and then they're going to go to the doctor. But we know that if the cochlear implant is implanted later in life, the hearing center in brain doesn't develop, so it is not the same as if it was implemented earlier. It's the same with all the stages of learning, language and perception, and a lot of things. So it was very, very important for especially the small children to go to school. And we focused mainly on kindergarten and primary schools because it was medically easier to defend to start with and already open in many countries, and there was no problem, and distance learning is not suitable for this group. So we collected data, research, and presented it so that anyone can understand and anyone can be behind us. Because, you know, if you really want to change policy, you have to have not just experts from up to down the policy, but if people really want it, then governments will implement it. So we really wanted to persuade people, and we read the data from all the respectable authorities. First of all, we started reading research, but then there was so much guidelines already, we didn't have to analyze it all. We could just translate the guidelines of these organizations, and then we made it simple for people to understand, for people like us, for people that are not used to scientific terms. We made everything simple. And this was the first report that we wrote. Aysuda and Tomris wrote it, Education Facts in the Pandemic, and I wrote a book chapter about it. And we also collected data in education and social sciences, not just medical data. I mean, we just didn't say it is safe for children to go to school. We also said it is necessary for children to go to school. It is important in an educational perspective, which I didn't have before the pandemic. I had to go through the literature and read. And we used UNICEF's and OECD and World Bank reports on what can happen if children don't go to school. So we raised a public awareness campaign. We started with social media, and we tried to educate doctors, teachers, parents through Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We first started with personal accounts, and then after we got to Turkish Medical Association's working group, we used their accounts too. And we started with peer training because a lot of doctors were opposing us in the beginning. So we really had to persuade our own colleagues that schools could be open. This is a journal of Emergency Medicine Association on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, Tomris is on a Zoom conference for doctors to educate them about how schools can be open, how they are open in other countries. And we started Instagram live broadcasts. You see, I'm wearing my white coat because I'm trustable. We used all means to be respectable and to persuade people. And then we even got one of my friends, he had a music group, to write us a song so that, you know, it could go viral and circulate about opening schools to make it a common thing and like to make it an entertainable thing. Because that's what people do, but that's what regular people do. They circulate videos that they like and they believe. And we used also Twitter too, and we used posts and comments, and to raise visibility, we have tried every trick, like going under the respectable ones, getting in arguments with them, because, you know, they were seen. They had 300,000 followers, and I had only 1,000. So my tweet was seen by like 5,000 people, let's see. But if I was commenting on one of those respectable people's tweets, then that would be 1 million. And Aysuda and Tomris were luckier because they already had over 30,000 followers on Twitter, and we used that very well. And these are their accounts, personal accounts, and this is the Turkish Medical Association account. And we also used WhatsApp. This is Tomris and I. 30 groups in common. Just for this purpose, we formed a lot of groups, and we were contacting everyone that we can, including journalists and educators, influencers. But at some point, we realized social media wasn't going to be enough. We had to get institutional support, and we knocked a lot of doors. We started with teachers' unions because we thought teachers would be listened. You know, they would say school is necessary for children, and then the schools, the parents would think, oh, the schools should be open, but they weren't open to the idea that they should go against the medical advice. You know, that was how they felt it. They thought it was dangerous, so we couldn't persuade them. Then we went to Turkish Medical Association, and it became the host for Opening Schools campaign, and it brought other stakeholders together. But it wasn't easy, as they said. We first of all talked to the head, and then she said, we cannot just circulate your ideas. If you really want to do something, just you need to come and work in our working group, start from there, and then it took us months to get a report from that group, you know, because we had to persuade each and every member of the group, and then we have to persuade the Turkish Medical Association to go against all the other experts' views and to risk its reputation by, you know, saying open the schools, because what if something happens? Everyone will blame it on the Turkish Medical Association. And we changed Turkish Medical Association's position on schools. And then we published several public statements, background documents, position papers, and press releases. We couldn't have done it without the Medical Association because, you know, if Aysu and Tomris would release a press conference, no one would attend. But if it was the Turkish Medical Association, then a lot of people came. And these are some of the pictures from the press conferences. Some of them were held in person and some of them were on Zoom. And we also circulated the announcement through social media so that a lot of people could join. And as a last thing, on top of all our efforts, we have managed to put Tomris on national television. That was very risky because, you know, it could damage her reputation, but then, and also they, you know, the TV channels, they really like arguments because it makes the watching things go up. So they put her against people who were really well known and also against school openings and tried to trigger her to get into arguments, but she managed them all very well. And we started with alternative media, opposing media, and Aysu'da already had connections there. And then we went interviews with newspapers, and then I was on state media because, you know, I'm still working in a state university and a state hospital, so I had to take permission to release any interviews beforehand. So I could only make it to state media and try to make my statement there. And then Tomris was on national TV. These are some of the programs that she appeared on. And we used our networks very extensively, and we built new friends and new networks along the way because, you know, we were going from person to person trying to persuade them, and everyone pointed out someone else, and then we had this giant family of supporters, and we have talked to anyone that could be involved in the process, starting from teachers' unions, bureaucrats, civil society organizations, and private schools, parents, journalists, and academics. And at the end, in August 2021, we brought Turkish Medical Association with all the teachers' unions, and that's a parents' association. So everyone was there, you know. The doctors were represented by the Turkish Medical Association, the teachers were all represented, and parents. So who could say no to this whole group of people? And the government couldn't say no. They changed the Ministry of Education, and the schools opened. Really, the Ministry of Education changed before the school openings, and after 1 week he opened the schools. And we also did lobbying with the politicians indirectly because they reached us. Like the consultant of the Ministry of Education, and all the political parties asked for opinion from the Turkish Medical Association, and we gave the scientific data behind schools to everyone who asked for it. And at last I kept my promise to my daughter, and she started primary school in person. So how did we do it? We collected data, raised public awareness on social media, used conventional media, and used our existing network, built new network, and did lobbying with the politicians to achieve our goal. We were lucky, but we really worked hard too. I don't know if it will work in any situation, but it worked in our situation. So thank you for listening.